cool Rotary shirt like the one I'm wearing, or like Ernie and Ron are wearing in the back for short sleeves, or the T-shirt that you came in, they'll all be customized with Rotary Club of Cary. But I need to get the order in. We have a minimum number before they'll do the customization. So those of you that aren't here, please contact me. I want to get the order in this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Neil Lagarde.
Thank you, President Scott. I want to first thank everybody that either bought raffle tickets or that made donations for Hospice of Wake County, I guess, Transitions Life Care now to the Summer Salute fundraiser that we've been doing. Today, we are actually have started the 10 Days of Summer auction online. So I want to ask anybody that is interested, please, easiest way to do it is probably go to North State Bank. I'll apologize to the other bankers here for saying that, but North State Bank, right there on their webpage, it will take you straight into the Summer Salute auction. There's a lot of great items there. Finks partnered with Breitling this year. We have a Super Ocean Heritage watch that's being auctioned off. So anyway, please help us make this the biggest year ever for Summer Salute, and go check out that auction. Thank you.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, Neil. Great opportunity. Thank you, Neil, for that. And now, could I ask Ernie Faulkner to come up? Ernie's got a very important announcement and small presentation.
Many of y'all know what this bell is. Some of y'all new enough may not know what it is. But this is the bell for winning the Salvation Army Ring a Bell over Christmas. Yeah. We had it here for many, many years, but one year we lost it. And we had a hard time. We won it this past year, and it took Shanna Filter, who's also a member of the Salvation Army and a member of this club, to retrieve it from the downtown Raleigh Club. But it's back here where it belongs. And Gary and I will be speaking to y'all this fall to make sure we keep it here.
All right. Excellent. I wondered what the Brinks truck was out there. Now I know. Thank you for your leadership, Ernie, on that, and Gary as well, Shana, and everybody's participation this year that really made this possible right here back. And let's make sure it stays here. So with that, could I ask any miracle moments out there? Renee, miracle moment.
Yes. On this day, 41 years ago, Jess and I got married out in Harper, North Carolina. It was rural farmland, and left the horse and buggy. I think we did one over there. We did that. But anyway, 41 years, 2 kids and 4 grandchildren later.
Outstanding. Kristen Sutton.
We are well represented at Green Hope High School. We have 5 or 6 volunteers and accounts that have stepped forward. So we have Rod Brooks, Tim Higgs, Jim Lovejoy, Gail Cabrera, David Coulter, and Paul Carr that have volunteered their time for the entrepreneur program. So thank you, shout out, well represented.
Excellent. Thank you. Great update. That's awesome. Thank you, Kristen. And to make sure everybody heard Renee online, that was 41 years today. So it's a big day. Congratulations. Happy anniversary. Any other miracle moments? We good? All right. So now we get right into the meat of the program. I'm going to ask Dr. Bruce Howell if he wouldn't mind coming up and introducing our very special guest for today's program. Dr. Howell.
Thank you, President Scott. We are fortunate to have the Treasurer
of the state of North Carolina with us today. Our treasurer comes from a hardworking family. His mother raised 3 children. She was a single parent. He's worked hard all of his life. He was fortunate enough to graduate from UNC Greensboro with both a bachelor's and a master's, and securing his CPA degree. And I've got new glasses, and so forgive me a little bit here. Our treasurer is the first Republican elected to this office in well over 100 years. He spoke to us about 3 years ago. And in my opinion, he's the first really great treasurer in the state of North Carolina since we had Harlan Boyles. Many of you knew Harlan, but he's done an outstanding job. He started out his career in politics on the Forsyth Board of Education. Then he moved into the legislature, where he served 4 terms, and then he was elected state treasurer. He's probably the second most powerful, influential person in the state of North Carolina and handles more money than anybody else. So with that, I'd like to have our speaker, Dale Folwell, come forward, please.
Thank you, Bruce. Except for Don, it's really great to be with all of you. I want to talk about cheeseburgers. He won't talk about budgets. So congratulations on your anniversary. Little CPA humor. It wasn't very good tax planning to get married in May, but maybe taxes weren't on your mind 41 years ago. But that's what treasurers, that's what CPAs always talk about, is standard deduction. So it's great to be back with you. As I said a couple of years ago, there's a chance that over the next few minutes I could get emotional. There are some things that are happening in all of our world right now that are worth getting emotional about. I will not be getting political, but I'll be getting highly mathematical. So if math makes you nauseous, you probably should zoom out now. But it's always great to be here with your group. I can tell you that I'm wearing 3 lapel pins today to kind of keep me on course about some of the important things that I want to communicate to your group. Number one is that, as you already know, basically 1 out of 10 adult North Carolinians are connected to the treasurer's office in some way, shape, or form. Those that taught, those that protected, and those that otherwise served, and taxpayers like them. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the pension. We're going to talk a lot about healthcare and the state health plan. And then this is going to be a little bit like a country music song. So I'm going to burn you down and build you up and burn you down. And at the end, I'm going to talk about NC Cash. Don got $52 from NC Cash. I think I'd like to hear a motion for him to contribute all 52 of that to the Happy Bucks. So I hear a motion.
Second, I make the motion.
Any opposed?
Hearing none, stands.
$52 for the Happy Bucks.
Thanks, Don. Good man.
So anyway, it's great to be with you. I can tell you that there's been a lot going on as the keeper of the public purse. We have just managed through the most volatile economic period in the modern era. And it really goes back to something that I wish somebody would have told me when I was a lot younger. And maybe this will be good advice for some of your grandkids that I've been hearing a little bit about over the last few minutes. If you do what you're supposed to do during the semester, the final exam is not so difficult. And as we know, we were all facing this final exam that none of us could have predicted, called COVID-19. But what had happened over the last 10 years is that the state of North Carolina had been building budget surpluses, had been building rainy day funds, had been resurrecting the unemployment trust fund. And all those things occurred over the last 10 years so that when the state was faced with something that we now know as COVID-19, we were in good financial shape. And so this pen that says NC obviously stands for North Carolina. It also stands for nothing compares. I would not trade places with any other state treasurer in the United States because nothing really compares with the balance sheet that we have going on, except for our healthcare insolvency, which I'll talk about in a moment. Secondly, I will tell you that more so than ever, any time that I've ever spoken with any of you individually or in this group, people don't really give a darn about what political party you're a member of. The people of this state have faced the highest levels of food, job, educational, and health insecurity and uncertainty over the last 12 months, the likes of which we've never seen. Some of you may know that a year and 3 weeks ago, I was one of the early intense cases of COVID-19. Now, my wife often accuses me of acting like I'm a doctor because my initials are Dr. Folwell. And I'm sure some of your wives may accuse you of saying things that make you sound like a doctor also. But I know enough to know this, that in third week of March, with no headache, no temperature, no shortness of breath, no loss of taste or smell, and no GI issues, I was in a very bad state to the point where my blood ox level was 82 while I was consuming 8 units of oxygen. And if you think about last March, no one really knew what to do with folks like me because nobody really knew much about COVID. And I'm saying this to you, not to draw attention to my situation, but to tell you that in the words of the old Jamie Johnson song about 8 years ago, and it's a beautiful song about an older gentleman, older than I, if you can believe that, who was thumbing through a photo album. And he was thumbing through the pictures of the Depression. He was thumbing through World War II. He was thumbing through getting married. He was thumbing through his life and his family. He was internalizing the grief of losing his spouse after decades and decades of marriage. And he said, you know, you should have seen it in color. You should have seen the Depression or World War II or raising a family or the grief of losing a spouse. You should have seen that in color. And I've seen COVID-19 in color. And the point of saying that to you is, as I talk about healthcare in a few moments, this is not going to be saying anything negative about healthcare workers, those that squoze my hand in the middle of the night when my blood ox level kept falling while they were giving me more oxygen. My body was rejecting oxygen. And this is about what's happening with the healthcare cartel, you know, the multi-billion-dollar organizations that refer to themselves as nonprofits in, you know, across North Carolina. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. So before I get into the details, just let me say that it does give me goosebumps. And I will say this, even though my initials are DR, you know, a goosebump is one of the only bodily functions you can't actually control. And it gives me goosebumps to just imagine where our communities could be, where our state could be, and where our country could be if every elected official would simply adopt service above self and the four-way test. If every elected official in this country would just adopt that simple motto and those 4 principles, it's unimaginable what we could accomplish. So I want to applaud all of you for all that you do to keep Rotary International going. When I go home on the weekends, I've told this story before, I see a Paul Harris Award that's hanging in our den. That Paul Harris Award was posthumously awarded to our son, who was tragically killed at the age of 7, 21 years ago. And so for all you Paul Harris recipients, I congratulate and applaud you. So let's talk about finances a little bit. Number one is that when I came and spoke to you before, I talked a little bit about the unemployment system of North Carolina. In March of 2013, I was handed, bless you,
Thank you.
a $2.8 billion deficit that the unemployment agency had to the federal government. Now, what I'm getting ready to say is once again not political. You know, the unemployment trust fund had money in it in the year 2000, but then our country was taxed, stock market was closed, and we went into recession. So the unemployment trust fund dipped. And then right when the unemployment trust fund was getting ready to get back into the positive territory again, and for those of you who own businesses, rest of you, I hope, don't wake up thinking about something called FUTA and SUTA, but some of you do, which is federal, state unemployment taxes. As long as that account is 1 penny to the negative, 1 penny, all the businesses across North Carolina get charged a surcharge. So the account had plenty of money in it in year 2000. And then we were hit with 9/11, the recession. It went into negative territory. Right when it was getting ready to get built back up, we hit the great financial crisis and it went negative again by 2.8 billion. So I inherited a $2.8 billion debt as the Assistant Secretary of Commerce. So we were fortunate to pay off $2.8 billion of debt and build a $1 billion surplus in 31 months. But that $1 billion surplus, thanks to businesses across North Carolina, including this one, and those of you represented in this audience and on Zoom, grew to $4 billion a year ago last week. So that account had $4 billion in it. And you know, when you have 1 million people unemployed in North Carolina because of COVID, this is an example of doing what you're supposed to do during the semester. So there's money to pay those benefits during the final exam. So unlike a lot of other states, we're dipping into their unemployment reserves and actually going negative, which means they're going to start charging payroll surcharges again. North Carolina did not, and I would predict we'll never face that situation again. Now, this is one of the invisible things. We've had some great announcements recently about large major employers coming to North Carolina. And everybody appreciates the Caesar salad and the pumpkin pageantry and cutting the ribbons and making the announcements. But somewhere there's someone like me that's behind the scenes who's sharpening their pencil to figure out what is the economic, financial, and tax certainty of where we're going for the next 25 years. And knowing that this unemployment trust fund is in good shape should bring a big smile on anyone's face who's thinking about coming here. Because all businesses want is certainty, regardless of how they're portrayed. They just want some certainty about what the cost of business is going to be. So the unemployment trust fund, as I said, was built up to about a $4 billion surplus. So we'll switch gears a little bit to the pension. The pension last week hit $119 billion. That is $30 billion above what it was valued at when I became the keeper of your public purse in January of 2017. But that's not just 29 billion above. That's 29 billion after paying out 27 billion in gross benefits. So it's not, Bruce, just like the value of the account is here, and now the value of the account is here. You've got to add in all the benefits that you paid out over that 4.5-year period of time. So those of you who have taught, protected, or served, with all the angst and anxiety going on in law enforcement and teaching and all the other public service duties in North Carolina, having angst and anxiety about the safety and security of this pension plan is not one of those. So the second lapel pin I wear is that they belong to Harlan Bowles, which Bruce mentioned in the introduction. You know, when Harlan Bowles left the treasurer's office in January of 2001, this pension plan had 110 cents on the dollar. So that means it had every dollar it would ever need. And it had 10 pennies on top of that. And through no fault of Treasurer Kyle or Treasurer Moore, as soon as Treasurer Moore came into office, we were attacked on 9/11. The plan lost tens of billions of dollars. Stock market was closed. And Treasurer Moore worked hard to get the plan back up in 2008. Then it was hit with a great financial crisis. The plan lost tens and tens of billions of dollars again. And my point of saying that to you is that obviously it doesn't matter who the treasurer is. We have no control over what the stock market does or what interest rates do. But it's very good to be standing here and reporting that the plan has nearly $119 billion in it. It's the 25th largest pool of public money in the entire world. And it's paying out about $550 million every 30 days in gross benefits. Now, as good as this pension plan is, it has headwinds. Now, I'm sure that a lot of you, your eyes are getting ready to glaze over, but I really want you to roll with me for a moment because I'm getting ready to introduce some concepts to you that all of you are familiar with, except I'm going to be talking about it in terms of billions of dollars. The pension plan has crossed a precipice over the last couple of years. And what that means is, and I say I used to stutter, so I have to slow this down when I say it. there are less people paying into the plan than are not. No, than are not. Because we have hundreds of thousands of people who are vested but not yet drawing. The reason that should matter to you is the only way a plan like this can stay funded is the employee contributes, the employing agency, DOT or the Treasurer's office, they contribute, but then the money has to grow. So if there's less money, less people paying in the plan than are not, that is something you're all familiar with through Social Security of the last 80 years. You know, it started 1,001 and 801 and 401. Now we're down to 2.5 people to 1. We're not obviously in that situation in our pension plan, but just to tell you, this is not political or emotional. This is mathematical. Number 2 is that with no minimum retirement age, we're now in a situation, congratulations females, we're now in a situation where if you came to work for the state as a female at 18 or 21 after college, for example, and you retired at 51 because there's no minimum retirement age in the plan, you are literally going to be drawing more retirement checks than paychecks. Plan was never designed for that. And thirdly, most importantly, is not only the blessedness of increased life expectancies, but 0 interest rates, which are great for investing in your mind or buying a house or building a business or buying a car. But the fact is, low interest rates are a killer for pension plans like ours or pension plans anywhere around the world, because we have $45 billion sitting in things that earn interest. And I said this to Harlan Bowles' son, who was in my office 2 weeks ago. I said, you know, it's pretty easy to be the state treasurer in North Carolina when government bonds are yielding 10%. And you only had to earn 7, you know, to jump over your hurdle. But as you know, interest rates are near 0. But the pension plan's in great shape. And even with those headwinds, it's one of the top handful best funded plans in the United States. And since I was with you, Moody's came out, one of the rating agencies, and said our plan was #1 in the country in terms of its ability to stay funded during an economic downturn. And who could have predicted what we faced last year with an economic downturn? Just briefly, let me talk about healthcare for a moment. I think I showed this the last time I was here. As you can see, I've shown it several times since I've been here. When I attempted to find out what healthcare costs for those that teach, protect, and serve, I sent a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request to UNC Healthcare. I'm the state treasurer, they're the state hospital. I thought that was an obvious place to go and ask the question, since we spend about $300 million a year just with UNC Healthcare. I said, I know what I paid you, but I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to pay. And I know some of you have seen this before, but this is what they returned to the state treasurer as the master charge list for what things cost at UNC Healthcare. And this is what all of you are facing too, no matter what health plan you're under. And my point of bringing this to your attention is that, as Warren Buffett said 4 years ago, rising healthcare costs are the tapeworm on the U.S. economy. Now, Warren Buffett's been my mentor for 34 years, mostly in absentia, but not all the time. I've met him several times. Been in his office a couple, 3 times. So Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, and Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan formed this thing called BBD, Buffett, Bezos, and Dimon, to try to take the collective brains and buying power of Amazon, of Berkshire Hathaway, and of JP Morgan, try to bring all that together to drive down healthcare costs for their employees. And they just folded that whole operation. And as Warren Buffett said 2 months ago, last month at his annual meeting, the tapeworm won. He said the rising healthcare costs are the tapeworm on the U.S. economy, and the tapeworm won. To give you in context, because that's not what's happening in our world today, is nobody gives you anything in context. Everybody wants to affirm what you feel about a subject. Nobody wants to inform you. To put this in context, the number of people in the United States who work for Berkshire Hathaway, who work for Amazon, and who work for JP Morgan combined, that's equal to the North Carolina State Health Plan for teachers and state employees. That our buying power is almost equal to the buying power of those 3 major companies. So we should be able to do it better and cheaper on behalf of those that teach and protect and serve. Since I was also with you last, there's been a few exposés that have come out. This is one from the Wall Street Journal that talks about the fact not comparing a state to a state or a hospital to a hospital. This is one CPT code at one hospital in California. The C-section can cost between $6,000 and $60,000. The same code. How offended would you be? And if you read into this article, that whether you get charged $6,000 or $60,000 depends on what kind of insurance card you have. How offended would you be if you left here or you went to pay your bill here and you got charged a different rate based on the kind of credit card you have? You wouldn't shop there anymore, right? This is in one hospital, one CPT code. Since I was also with you last, I was racing for the National Cross Country Motocross Dirt Bike Motorcycle Racing Championship. And I was at the last race in Beckley, West Virginia. And I was running second in the national title and went off a jump in Beckley, West Virginia. And I didn't land with the motorcycle. I landed without the motorcycle. And I got back, I won't tell you the story, there's too much adrenaline in that story, but point of saying, I got about 2 more miles down in the woods and my arm was attached to my body. I couldn't feel it, couldn't see it, it was just couldn't. And they traumatized me out of the woods, they traumatized me to the hospital. My wife, who loves watching me race, but rarely doesn't go to watch me race because of the distances, she happened to be with me. And she was following me in the truck that we'd driven up to take my motorcycle up to this race. And so I was in the ambulance. We went to the hospital in Beckley, West Virginia, and she had parked the truck and everybody's all nervous. And she comes up where they're rolling me in the emergency room and she says, "Oh, I forgot your insurance card." And I said, "Honey, do not go get that insurance card." And she said, "You're not thinking straight." I haven't been married 41 years, but I've been married 34 years. And I said, "I'm thinking as straight as you've ever heard me think since you've known me. If you get that insurance card, we're gonna be here 4 days." We were out in 5 hours because I checked in as uninsured. I can deal with it after we leave that place. I can then call up there and give my insurance information. But this is more evidence of what this Wall Street Journal article just talked about 2 months ago, of what people are getting charged for the exact same procedure. Now, I say this respectfully, this is not about Roy Williams or Roy Cooper or Dale Folwell. This is about the people out there right now who are teaching your children and grandchildren, the people who are protecting us from criminals in correctional facilities, those that teach, those that protect, and those that otherwise serve. Because you know what's attached to the difference between $6,000 and $60,000? A deductible. You know what's attached? A copay. We have many state employees and people across North Carolina, what I call a forgotten woman and man of the state, who are one medical bill away from being economically and generationally blown up. It's different when I was growing up in my economic situation. Credit scores probably mattered some in the 60s and 70s, not as much as they do now. A credit score probably determines what you pay for one of these. A credit score probably determines how much you pay for basic liability insurance to get back and forth to work in your car. A credit score definitely affects how much you pay for a mortgage when you're trying to build equity in your life. When we have surprise billing, out-of-network billing, no transparent billing in healthcare, we have a great number of people in the state, especially the fixed and lower income individuals, who are one medical bill away from being blown up. And that's why I continue to be on the charge to get rid of secret pricing in healthcare in North Carolina and to bring transparent healthcare. Now, if you just imagine for a moment, for 5 seconds, if we were known as the state with transparent healthcare, it would be an economic gold rush, especially for rural North Carolina. And as strong as our torso is right now with Charlotte, the Triangle, we got big problems right now in rural North Carolina with depopulating areas, water and sewer district. When I leave here today, I've got to go help Terrell County. Terrell County got hit 2 years ago, not because of an act of COVID or an act of God, because of an act of the state. There was a decision made to close the prison in Terrell County. There's a little problem with that. Terrell County is the last one you go through before you get to the Outer Banks. There's just a little problem with that. Terrell County partnered with that prison. This is one of the lowest income counties in the United States. Partnered with that prison to build a reverse osmosis water and sewer plant. So when they closed the prison, that means no toilets, no kitchens, and no showers. And they blew literally a 30-foot hole through the finances of that water and sewer system. So what happened to the other 1,320 people that were on that water and sewer system? All that cost had to be spread amongst them, and their water and sewer rates went up 25% in one of the poorest counties, lower income counties in the United States. My point of saying to you that is when you talk about a county like Terrell County, you need to understand, any of you who are familiar with Charlotte, that the number of citizens in that county this morning is about equal to the student faculty population at Myers Park High School. Matter of fact, the chair of the county commission often jokes with me, he thinks he may have more bears than people in Terrell County. What you should also know about that particular county, and this is, everyone has its own little complexities, is that half of the property in that county does not pay property tax. And what you should also know is that between St. Patrick's Day and July 4th of last year, the sales tax revenue of that county fell 28%. So when your population is the size of a high school, half your property does not get taxed, and your sales tax revenue falls almost 28%. You can see why I have deep concern as the state treasurer and the chair of the local government commission about what's happening in many parts of rural North Carolina. With that, I think I'll close, but before doing so, I do want to leave you with our happy bucks. As many of you know, and I've already given it away, we have a division at the treasurer's office called nccash.com. And it's not a gimmick. And every time that I give a speech to a Rotary Club, by the way, somebody has something in NC Cash. I've got little cards for all of you to take home. And I only talk about this at the end of my talk because if I talked about it at the beginning of my talk, all of you would be checking your devices to see if you have anything. Now, I asked my wife, Cynthia, I said, what do people think when they hear me talk for 60 seconds? I don't suggest any of you doing this, but I did it. She said, they asked themselves, is he serious? Because I'm talking about things that are really serious, and a lot of people, when they hear them for the first time, they're saying, I've never heard about any of this. And I said, what do they think about for the second 60 seconds they hear me talk? And she said, they want to know how we got there. Like, how do we get a $28 billion unfunded healthcare plan? Why is the healthcare plan insolvent? The pension plan is one of the best. And so what I'm getting ready to tell you is, how do we get here? There's $912 million sitting at nccash.com. It's a page, it's a check of some form that never got to you, or when it got to you, it went down under the seat or got put in the drawer somewhere. It's something that was sent to you that was never cashed. Now, since I used to stutter, I'm advised not to use this word too often, but the actual legal term is the escheats fund. If you say that and it comes out wrong, you don't get invited back to Rotary Club. But yeah, we're going to call it nccash.com. There's $912 million there. Last December, I delivered $2,500 to Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers paid it forward to the domestic abuse shelter in Charlotte. The Panthers had money there. The domestic abuse shelter had money there. They didn't know it. And 3 of the 5 reporters who covered the story had money at nccash.com. There's 100 Rotary Club entries in North Carolina for Rotary clubs that have money at nccash.com. Now, who's your treasurer?
He's on there. He's on there.
Blair, you get the something. You get some kind of award because your Rotary Club doesn't have anything at nccash.com, which means he's taking good care of business there. But last year we gave $600,000 to a lady who was the beneficiary of a life insurance policy. And people said, well, how'd that happen? Well, people don't walk around telling you you're the beneficiary of their life insurance policy, especially $600,000. It's not a very smart move. And we also have some other things, and I've seen a few smiles on your faces now that we don't have masks. And it looks like everybody's in pretty good shape at the Cary Rotary Club. But in addition to cash and securities, we have some other things like baby teeth and silver teeth and gold teeth and false teeth. And the reason is that all the abandoned lock boxes in at the banks, when they can't find out who the owners are, all that stuff gets sent to the treasurer's office. And to be far more reverent for a moment, we were able to return some World War II medals recently to a family they've been looking for 14 years. And we also were able to give a watch back to a Purple Heart and a watch that had Woodrow Wilson's name inscribed back to a family they've been looking for over 2 decades. So I want to thank you for all you do for Rotary. I appreciate the opportunity to come in, not just affirm what you already think about a subject, but also to inform you and to let you know that of what I think when I see these on my schedule, that if every elected official in the country would just adopt service above self and the 4-way test, it's unimaginable what we could accomplish. So with that, Mr. President, I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. Yes, sir.
Working with the lottery, it seems like every year the Board of Education gets into a big scrap, not paying the teachers enough money, there's no money for this, there's no money for that. Can you explain exactly how the lottery funds and the percentages that they fund the education?
I was on the floor of the House of Representatives when the lottery passed, and it passed without my vote. Because I was in fear of what is now happening. And that is a word called supplanting. And I accuse, that's what my wife's doing in her garden these days, but it's where money is given to something, but then the money is taken away from something else. So they just end up with the same amount of money. The thing about the lottery that I can best address right now is this. When the lottery passed in North Carolina, 40% of the lottery proceeds were supposed to go to public school construction. Just a couple of years, 3 years ago, that number fell to 18%. So as the amount of the lottery increased, the profits increased, the percentage went down. It was supposed to be at 40%. So number one, that's the state treasurer and somebody who was actually on the floor when that passed. I'm in favor of a constitutional amendment that says what the law said it was supposed to say, and that is that 40% of the lottery money goes for public school construction and repair and renovation. Now, is anybody here familiar with Winston-Salem? Okay. Well, if you go out Renolda Road, I was on the school board. You go out Renolda Road past Wake Forest, there's a school out there called Old Town Elementary. And when I used to be a garbage collector for Forsyth Garbage Service, that school was on my route. And when I was on the school board, that school needed to be renovated. The torso is gorgeous. You know, the auditorium and the front of that school and the columns, but just need new legs and arms. And we need to have this lottery, not only that 40% of the money goes to public school construction, but it can be used for repair and renovation. Not everything needs to be torn down. And the older I get, the more I'm believing that. You know, some things can just be worked on a little bit. So I'm in favor of 40% of the money going toward public school construction, and that money be able to be used for repair and renovation. If you're in a county that's depopulated, for example, when I spoke to the Carroll County High School, they only have one high school in that county, only one. They had 38 graduates last year. Okay, so they don't need a new high school. What they need is they need money to repair what they have. So I can't tell you where all the other lottery money goes, but I'm in favor of restoring the lottery money so that 40% goes for public school construction. That will help the wealthier counties and have the money follow the child with some kind of tier. But that will help the poor, that will help the lower income counties, and will help the wealthier counties, because the lower income counties have nowhere else to go to fix their schools but on the backs of the property taxpayers who are already struggling, because their areas are depopulated and the services that they're paying for are now being spread among fewer and fewer people. Yes, sir.
Yes, you mentioned a pension and a benefit that seemed to be maybe only for females.
Okay. But my wife accuses me of not hearing very well. So, no, what I was saying is that females in North Carolina have a higher life expectancy than males. Okay, so, and there's no minimum retirement age. Okay, so what I'm saying is, especially they're gonna get more retirement checks than they got paychecks
Okay,
based on the actuaries.
okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, anything else? Yeah. Is that it? One
I-
more?
I have something about this. I recently went on this and there's a lot under my name and my husband's name, but I couldn't get any of it because I can't prove my college address. So how do
That
I?
sounds like a whole speech.
So I was like, just to, I don't know how to make it easier. I can't get it.
Well, there's an email address. on
Okay.
there, and you can just.
Because I was excited when I saw it.
Is as much as Don has?
Probably.
Oh,
It was greater than 50 on the one.
it's greater than 50.
Yeah.
So anyway, listen, thank you for having me, and you can find more about all this at nctreasurer.com. Obviously, you can go to nccash.com. And the third pin I want to close with this is to tell you that we're in the check delivery business. We issue checks to 348,000 retirees, $550 million a month, 250 million in healthcare benefits and pharmaceutical benefits. And all those are blessings. But occasionally we're in the check delivery business for those that are killed in line of duty. And 14 days ago, I attended the funerals of Watauga Deputy Sheriffs Ward and Fox up in Boone, North Carolina. And I can tell you, after experiencing this personally as a father, that no Father's Day and no Mother's Day is ever going to be the same for these families or these communities. And so I wear this last badge on earth, and I'd like to dedicate my remarks this afternoon in honor of Deputy Ward and Deputy Fox, who gave their lives protecting us. Thank you very much.
Schedule several hours for you. I think everyone's attention. I think you've gotten one of these slides in before. These are big cards, no cards from the Cary Rotary Club. They were drawn and run by one of our founding members, Jerry Miller, who represent a lot of historical places in Cary.
Mr. Miller.
Oh, no, not this week.
That was
John.
John. Okay. I got my J's.
Mhm.
But anyway, he's such a design we have with us. Thank you so much for coming.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Dale. Great presentation. And thank you. Appreciate that. I know what I'm doing when I'm going home. So check on me.
Somebody in this room's already got
I
one. They need to fess up.
I like it.
That was a confession.
So on to next week's program. Very excited to let everybody know that Charlie Konigsberg will be hosting next week. Randy Harrington will be coming to talk to us, to update us on the town of Holly Springs. So a little further south in Apex, we'll get to hear some good things on what they're up to, and we look forward to that. In 2 weeks, David Coulter will be hosting. Jenny Johnson, town of Cary, will be providing us with an update on our 150th celebration for the town of Cary. So we look forward to that. David, thank you.
Mr. President, I want to brag on the town of Cary. The statewide average on what these towns have in reserve is about 25% of their budget. Cary has 62%. So not just the state average, but over twice the state average in reserve. So
Wow.
very conservatively managed.
Not that we're competitive, but good. Thank you for that. It's good stuff. So here's what I've decided. We've had an issue. I've had a number of people call me out on this. So I've decided that when I let people know what the lunch arrangement is for the following week, instead of giving one option, I'm going to give two. It may be one or the other. It may be neither one. So, because I can't, I tried to have Bob help me. Bob figured it out a lot quicker than I did. But so next week is Cobb salad with romaine, tomato, eggs, bacon, and blue cheese, or barbecued pulled pork with green beans and mac and cheese. So it's either one of those or it's neither one. So I hope that clears it up for you. No more confusion. And again, thank you, everybody, for being here today. You know, things are opening up a little bit, obviously. A lot of people are smiling. It's great to see. We've got a good crowd here, good crowd online, and I'm excited for the future. No doubt about that. So, Dale, thank you again for being here today. It's always a pleasure to have you. And Bruce, thank you for hosting. Could I ask Jim Lovejoy to lead us out in the four-way test? Jim?
President Scott, I would be honored to lead us out in the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do.
Is it true?
Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Excellent. Thank you. We find the dong. Have a good week, everybody.